So I just finished watching season 1. Time for a recap. Wow. Let me first start out by saying I am so impressed by this show. I went into the show with a vague knowledge of who the characters are. Like I've said before, I've seen most of the movies, and so I had a general idea of who these characters are. But those movies take place like 20 years after this show. So even going into it, I didn't have the background and the knowledge of how these characters came together and things like that. So this was wonderful getting to see all of that. But going into the show, I was kind of under the impression that the show wasn't very good. I knew there was a huge following for it. I mean, it's a massive, massive following. But I was always told that it wasn't a very good show, that it was really cheesy. Like, there were some great ideas, but I think I knew more about the show from parodies and other people than I did the show itself. Like I said, I know I've seen Trouble with Tribbles, but the last time I saw that was probably 15 years ago, if not more. And all I remember is that they were little fuzzy things. That was it. Going into it, what I knew was from parodies. I had seen Galaxy Quest, and I've seen Saturday Night Live, and everything from, I know like Farscape did a little parody of it, and actually would reference it a lot, and Family Guy and South Park, and on and on and on. We've all seen the parodies of the show, and things of that nature. And that's what I thought it was based on. I know parodies exaggerate, but I was like, if there's this much out there, all parodying the hokiness and the silliness and Shatner's acting and stuff like that, there's got to be an element of truth into it. So that's kind of how I went into this show. I know a lot of people like to say, well, I like to go into something with no expectations. That's, for me, not possible. I always have some form of expectation. It's always something I tend to know about it. I honestly can't think of any movie I've ever seen or any show I've ever watched where I went in 100% blind. Whether I had seen a trailer for it, or somebody had recommended it to me, or I knew an actor was in it, or somebody had worked on it, whatever. There's always something in the back of my mind. So, going into this, that was my perception. I'm so glad I was wrong. This show has been a real treat so far. Things I like and things I don't like. Let me talk about those real quick. First thing I like is the story. The story is really, really good. It is well constructed for the most part. Yeah, we've had some dud episodes like the Parallel Universe one that was just awful. And then we had things like Corbomite Maneuver and City on the Edge of Forever. Wow. Like, those are well-written shows. I was actually telling a friend today that he needs to go and watch City on the Edge. He's never really seen Star Trek either. He was kind of under the same impression. I told him, like, man, I don't care if you watch any other episodes, just watch that one episode and that's it. You don't have to watch anything else after that. Just see it, because I really do believe that episode is that good. If I was making a list of, like, the top 10 greatest television episodes of all time, these are the ones that really stand out. I would put that in there. Seriously, I would rank along something like Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen from MASH, or Once More with Feeling from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. These legendary episodes of stuff that we've seen. So that's how I'm feeling. Is that the writing is really, really good. And I think that's the key to good science fiction, is the writing. When we look back on other shows that had a similar budget, there's not too many we remember. This one is the one that stands out because the writing. And even shows that came after this that had a little bit better budget, had a better knowledge of it, we don't remember too well. Or if we do remember them, we remember them for being really awful. And I'm going to like the original Battlestar Galactica, I think is a terrible show. there's very little in it that I find redeeming. It's bad acting, bad stories, bad plots, bad special effects. It's just generally a bad show. Versus Doctor Who, which has, other than for the short hiatus in like the 90s, has been on the air before Star Trek, and that's a show that was known for bad special effects, yet it's so endearing. And the little bit I've seen new stuff with like David Tennant, special effects really aren't anything awesome, but the writing and the acting and the stories are great. That's where it is. That's why we remember those shows, is the good writing. I look at other shows and movies and stuff. I think it's something like Enemy Mine, which had decent special effects, but that one's remembered because it had a really great story. That's what this is. The special effects are awful. I think anybody who tries to defend the special effects and say that they're good is just trying to be a fanboy, because they're not good. And I like this show, and I will fully admit that they're not good special effects at all. But it's the writing that keeps me endearing. With the writing and the story, it's the characters. And the three main characters, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, what a great dynamic they are. Those three are so good together, especially for like 60s television writing. We've seen advances in writing. We've seen how it's matured over the years, and we've seen other teams of three come along in other shows. But these three, there's something really interesting about them. Because on one level, they really shouldn't be getting along. They're all three so different from each other. And we see that. We see especially the McCoy and Spock dynamic, where they're doing this. Really interesting, yet they have so much respect and admiration and really do care for each other. And we get to see some of that going on in various episodes. Kirk's relationship to those two as well. And Bones being a little bit older than Kirk and kind of being a little bit of a mentor to him in some ways. And I feel like there's almost an element of Spock on one end with his logic and McCoy on the other end with his heart and his soul. And Kirk is in the middle, and I think he's trying to find a balance between the two. And he gets swayed one way, and the other one has to pull him back. And I think I'm seeing some of that in there. That's the point of Spock and McCoy, is to keep Kirk balanced. That neither one is better than the other, and they need each other to help balance out Kirk, who is really the centerpiece of the show. So those characters are great. The secondary characters, for the most part, are interesting. Scotty is kind of interesting. Whenever Sulu actually gets a real part, it's a lot of fun. I'm thinking that early episode when he became the swashbuckler, or the time he gets the revolver. So I guess what I'm saying is, give Sulu weapons and he becomes really cool. That's what I'm getting at. But yeah, when he has an opportunity to shine, really great. Scotty, again, he's kind of a fun character. We've got to see him kind of step out of his shell as a character once and really kind of shine. I'm waiting for more of that. Uhura, really an interesting thing. And, we could talk a long time about Nichelle Nichols in that role. And I know I posted last week on Martin Luther King Jr. Day a video interview with her. And it was an interview, or I know that story because I've seen her tell it several different times, and I've heard other people recant it. But it's so true. I love that story about her meeting Dr. King when she was getting ready to quit the show, and him telling her, you can't. And when you look at it, this show was so ahead of its time. This show was filmed during the height of the civil rights movement. And you look at the cast, and there is a black woman as one of the main characters, not playing a black woman. I honestly can't think of too many other characters that are black females that don't play a stereotypical black female. That's kind of sad. That really is. I know there are some out there. I'm thinking, more, honestly, more in recent years, like Zoe from Firefly, and I think partially that's due to Joss Whedon's writing, and Claudette Wims, played by CCH Pounder in The Shield. Amazing, amazing character. But that kind of had an Ellen Ripley treatment to it, in that it was originally a man's part. And they just had her come in, and they just changed the he to she in language, and that was about it. But she didn't play the black woman, and even though she was a really strong character, I didn't see that in it. I'm sure there's others out there, and I'm sure I'm missing something, and somebody's going to rant and rave about it. And please do let me know what I'm missing, because I think this is a really important topic to talk about, and I would love to do a video on it later, go more in depth, and do a roundtable on it. But yeah, she's on there. George Takei as Sulu, again, a minority in the middle of the 60s, having a major role on it. Really diverse group. And then you have Spock, who is an alien, and we can look at the metaphors with that as well. This show is so ballsy. It is so ahead of its time, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it for that reason, and I could only imagine what this must have been like to see originally on the television in 1965, 66, 67, whenever it was on air, and to turn on the television as well and to see the news, following it with an episode of Star Trek. That must have been incredible. Gene Roddenberry, I think, had a really beautiful vision, and a lot like Rod Serling, he needed a way to get it to the public. And like Rod Serling, who created The Twilight Zone, he did it through science fiction and fantasy and horror. Gene Roddenberry, I don't think, could have told this story in any other medium. I don't think having that same cast and having those same issues would have worked in a modern setting. That's really cool that he was able to do that. I think that's one of the beauties of great science fiction, is it is a metaphor for so many things, and there is so much more that you can talk about. And like I said, it goes back to, I think, great science fiction versus bad science fiction. Is the great stuff really speaks to us because it is on a deeper level. That's why Star Trek and Star Wars endear so much. That's why, like, Isaac Asimov, like Foundation is such a remarkable book. Or Frank Herbert's Dune. Those stories are on such a deep level. Look at Philip K. Dick, like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which was turned into Blade Runner. Either one of those. There's something so powerful and so deep about the stories, and those are the ones that remain. And that's why stuff like Battlefield Earth gets crapped on, because it was just, that's why The Phantom Menace, even more so Attack the Clones, was just despised. Because there was no heart to it, there was no soul to it, there was no social commentary. It was a dude hitting on a chick, referring to her as a beach, or the lack thereof. We don't want to see that in our science fiction. That's why the crappy science fiction doesn't last long. That's why the crappy horror and fantasy stuff doesn't last long. People freaking out about Twilight. I personally don't give a crap about it, because honestly, 15 years from now, nobody will care. Seriously, nobody will care about it. It's not that big of a deal. I will be surprised if 15 years from now it is as big, and I will recant my statement and make a whole new video. And but those don't hold up yet. Lord of the Rings and Narnia do. I would bet some serious money that Harry Potter is going to hold up 50 years from now. Because, again, that story has that really deep stuff. But I digress way too much, and let's get back to Star Trek. So the stuff I like, the story, the characters, the acting, I think DeForest Kelley as Bones is my favorite actor and character. There's something really great he does with that. Leonard Nimoy as Spock, really fun, really interesting. I guess we hadn't really seen characters like that too much before. He's doing great. For the most part, I like Shatner. Yeah, he's hammy, but I think that's what it needs. It needs that kind of over-the-top pomp that he has, and there's something charming about him that I really do like. Disposable red shirts are just that. They're disposable red shirts. I really don't care, and that's fine. That's their purpose. But the principal cast, those 6, I really like. I really like Yeoman Rand, and I guess apparently she's not in the show anymore. She wasn't a really deep character, but she was fun, and I loved the hair. And again, I can't find any information if that was... I'm pretty sure that had to be a wig. But even still, that was a pretty impressive piece of hair. So cast, I like. Stories, I like. What I don't like. There's honestly very little I don't like about it. Sorry. The big thing I don't like is how too much of it is compressed into 15-minute episodes. Like I said in my last review with Operation Annihilate, that I think could have been a really great 2-parter. I think The Menagerie holds up really well because it is a 2-parter. We get to see the story unfold over longer periods. But I don't think television was ready for serials of that nature. That, like I said before in my last video, that's kind of commonplace now, is the big epic serials. Typically we see more of that in later seasons and stuff. You think, especially in the sci-fi genre, if we look at other stuff, X-Files and Buffy and Stargate, and even Farscape to a degree, were pretty episodic in the beginning. They were, Adventure of the Week and Monster of the Week episodes. And it wasn't until a little bit later that we get this really great serial with all these to-be-continued episodes. And I know people are torn on that, especially with something like the X-Files. There's this group, there's like half of them are like, we love Monster of the Week stuff and we hate the alien conspiracy stuff. And there's another half like, I just want the alien conspiracy. I don't care about some mutated garbage monster or whatever. Fair enough. That's a debate for another time. So, my big thing, I guess, is just more the time period. I think this show, part of it is like, I wish there was so much more. But overall, there's very little. Yeah, the special effects are kind of cheesy. But most of these episodes, I would say, honestly, 75% of the episodes I have seen so far are good or great. In the case of Corbomite Maneuver and City, I think those are phenomenal episodes. Mantrap, Mud's Women, whatever that last one was, that terrible one 3 episodes ago, whatever it was, the parallel universes, that was terrible. Those are pretty bad, and like I said, I wouldn't recommend people watch them unless you're a purist and want to see everything. Hey, 3-4 episodes out of a season this long that really aren't good, that's a pretty good track record, I would say. So, that's my feeling so far. I am really intrigued by it. It's much better than I thought it was going to be, and in fact, some of it I think is just really incredible television, and I'm beginning to understand why people love this show so much. Which makes me even more excited, because I've got so much more to watch. Big question is, can I do this all in a year? I know I'm already behind schedule, and this is a really daunting task. So, I guess my final thing I'm going to leave you guys with is, please help support this. I think if I have more people supporting me, whether it's just people watching, people commenting, I would love to do more crossovers like I did with DJ Gunn. And quick little spoiler, he and I are working on a project ourselves for a show called Min-Max, and that's all I'm going to say about it. But I think with more support, I'll be able to do this. But let me get through the first season and I'll reevaluate. Maybe I won't be able to do the whole thing in a year, and maybe we'll just set it for like a 2-year goal and then make each review a little bit bigger and a little deeper and do some more. But again, you guys tell me what you want. I've gotten some comments back from people. I've gotten some emails. I've got several Facebook pages that have liked my stuff and have commented on it. So please help spread the word. I want to do more with this. I want to get more conversation. I would love to get this big enough and get some recognition that in August I can hit up something like Dragon Con and be part of a panel. I would love to. Now, this would be cool if I could sit down with one of the cast members and do an episode of this. That would be an awesome goal. I would love that. Because I'm not a fanboy, and I think that may be kind of intriguing, is somebody who's not going to be there trying to make out with William Shatner. That's a really scary image, especially if you consider most of the Star Trek fans out there who are kind of fat, obese, ugly guys. And that's stereotyping. So, Season 1, I am happy. I'm looking forward to Season 2, and I'm looking forward to doing more with this project. So, I really, really am asking for everybody's support here, but I'm not going to do like a PBS fundraising drive or anything like that. All I'm going to say is I'm having fun doing this. I'm really hoping you're having fun watching these videos. I know several people have started watching the show because of this. That's cool. Let's get more people interested, and I hope this is the beginning of something bigger, that I can do more with it. So, that's all I'm going to say. I've gone on for over 20 minutes. I'm loving this experience. I'm loving the show. I may wind up becoming a hardcore Star Trek fan by the end of this, or I may hate it. Either which way, I wish you guys a wonderful day, and I'm going to take a couple days off from doing this, and I will see you all later.